everybody, I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Chris Yi.
And I'm Mike DiLisio.
We have a small little game we're looking at here today called Longboard, which is about really long surfboards. I don't know a lot about this topic.
You water your surfboard and it grows longer and longer.
It's like bamboo. You can actually see the longboard. No, you're right.
Mike actually surfs.
Longboards they're a particular type of surfboard, and they're longer. That's about it.
And you are making them. Okay, that's the theme. It is a number game from Dr. Reiner Knizia, but I don't think it's a reworking of an older game. This feels like a new game. I mean, you can tell it's him in a second.
Sure.
But I don't think it's
a re-implementation of one of his older games.
No, it seems a little bit fresh, so who's going to teach it?
I am. Here we go.
Ooh.
This game is played with a deck of cards that are made up of 4 different color boards: green, orange, red, blue. Although you'll notice they have different symbols and different colored stripes down the middle to help differentiate them if you're colorblind. The cards have a value of 1 to 8. There's more cards with the middle numbers in the deck, and there's also 1 of each number that's wild. That can be any color. Each player is going to start with 2 of these boards in front of them in their supply. You'll shuffle some objectives, which give points to someone at the end of the game. And you're going to put 4 of them out. So, for example, the red board with the most cards, or 2 boards of the same color, or 3 in a 2-player game. So you'll have some of these that people can go for. On a player's turn, they have 2 actions that they can do, and you can do the same action twice. One of those actions is increase your supply. You take a card out and put this in front of you. It adds to your supply. Another thing that you can, and you could do that twice if you wanted to. Another thing you do is you could start or extend a board. When you start a board, you'll put a card in front of you, and you're starting to build on that board. In the future, you can put any card on top of it as long as it is the same number or higher. So, for example, I could start with this 2. I could play a 3 on top of that, a 4 on top of that, a 4 on top of that, a 6 on top of that, a 7 on top of that. You can't start with a wild, but a wild can go on any board. Once a board has 4 cards in it, that board is considered shaped. This matters because only shaped cards are going to score at the end of the game. The game comes with these optional cards that I recommend you use that you can put underneath a board once it's shaped. It also has a little flavor, I suppose. Because at the end of the game, and the game is triggered when a certain number of shaped boards exists. So, for example, in a 4-player game, if there's 3 shaped boards and at least one has 7 cards, then you're going to trigger the end of the game. When you score, you're simply going to go through and count the number of stickers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stickers. That's worth 8 points. The longest board gets 5 points, and whoever has the most shaped boards gets 5 points, and you'll also score points for objectives. If you didn't finish your boards, then you will have only 1 point. You'll lose 1 point if they are 2 or 3 cards, and you'll lose 2 points if it's just 1 card. So you have to be careful about throwing out starting boards and not finishing them. I did mention there was 3 different actions you can do, though, and I want to talk about the last one now. And that is essentially you can steal cards from someone else. It's called swapping. But I can take a card from someone else. Let's say I want that wild 2. That's a pretty decent card. Or maybe the blue 2, because then I could start a blue board, because 2 is pretty low. So I have to give that person 1 or more of my cards, so I do so. They now have this. But the value has to be equal to or higher the card I'm taking. I now take this 2 and put it in front of me. I immediately start or extend a board with it. And let's say if this person wanted to take my 7, they would have to give me both these cards to take the 7 and do the same thing. So you have to be cautious when you draw a card. Will you then immediately start a board with that, or will you draw another card but leaving that card out there? However, when someone steals a card from you, you always will get a card to replace that card that was taken from you. And so that's how you play. Most points is the winner.
All right. I want to say, just real quickly, I like the way the game looks a lot. I really like the extension of the boards. Just it feels good to make this long surfboard get longer, and those optional little cards you stick underneath, I think they're nice.
Yes.
And also they are a quick way to look around the table, see who has 4 cards.
Yeah, I don't know why that was optional, to tell you the truth.
I thought that was odd. Usually when I read something like optional, I'm like, I'll worry about that later.
Right.
I was like, oh no, really useful.
It's not a mechanism. All
Right,
it
I
is
don't know why they just say do it.
It's an aesthetic thing, but it also has a usability. Like you said, once you've got the shaped board, which is at least 4 cards, you know that it can score, so you put that there. I mean, that should not be an option. That should be standard.
Yeah, the boards look good. The wild cards being the 4 different colors looks a little bit odd when you have that right in the middle of the board, but I mean, I get it.
That's a funky board.
Yeah,
That's right.
But hey, it has wild cards in it. Cool, I like that touch. So I'm willing for the board to look a little bit striped at one point.
Now, this game, as soon as I played it, I was like, it feels similar.
Yes.
There's going to be a lot of comparisons between this and Lost Cities.
Right.
They're not quite, not even really a lot the same. There's much difference between them. But the building numbers in a row is what Lost Cities is all about.
The potential of losing points if you don't go far enough into an expedition. I'm sorry, a longboard.
It's a small negative, I think, actually. Other than that, though, I don't particularly think they're similar much at all.
No, other
Those are
than
two things,
you do have to be aware of what the other players have. So there's a little bit of, you're not just worried about what you've got, you're worried about what the other player has. The potential of taking from the other is kind of the similar.
Let's talk about that, the stealing from each other, because that's a negative type thing, and some people have a reaction like, oh, you can steal my cards.
Right.
I think that makes this game.
Yes.
I agree.
Because it adds a little bit of a push your luck. If I have a 4 blue in front of me, Mike's probably not going to take that from me because he can't start. You don't probably want to start a board with a 4. You could.
In most cases, you would not want to.
But you probably don't want to. So I'm feeling safe. Then Mike puts a 2 blue in front of him, and I'm like, he might wait for a 3.
Right.
Maybe I should just do something with that board.
Right.
And also, when you draw that first card and it's a low number, maybe you should put that card out. Drawing a card as your second action is a really dangerous move.
I found that out after my first play. Yes.
Because Mike's like, why would you not draw 2 cards? And I was like, that's why.
That's why.
How did you learn that?
Because I basically, in the first game I played with Chris, I handed him so many good cards just by not catching on quickly enough that you don't want to do that.
Well, and it's a net potential positive
It is.
getting stolen from because someone has to give you higher value of cards, and that immediately, well, I had the immediate reaction of stealing. We'll see. That's kind of a turnoff in games for me. Woo! But the fact that I have to give you a higher total value, it's really clever. It might not be exactly what you want to work with, but then if we're playing a 3-4 player game, you have more trading currency, so to speak.
Yes.
I think that's a huge element of the game. If you didn't have that, if it was just take a card from another player, it would feel it'd feel more aggressive and it would just feel more unsatisfying. It's like, oh man, you have to get something in return. And like you said, you're usually going to use those cards.
That being said, I think it plays better with 3 and 4. 2 is fine to me, but with 3 or 4, there's more people to take cards from. I just feel there's a little bit of that going on. If I have 2, I'd be like, well, there's this game called Lost Cities. But I don't think I've played it at 2. You guys have.
We played it at 2.
What did you think?
I liked it plenty.
I liked it because then it does get into some more of the Lost Cities getting into the head. You only have one other person that you're kind of jockeying with.
That's a good point.
So I think it works at both, across the player counts.
And if one of your least favorite parts of Lost Cities is when your hand gets clogged, I'm sorry to keep comparing to Lost Cities, but in that game, in this game, the cards are outsplayed on the table. In Lost Cities, you have a hand limit, and sometimes you're not putting a card out for your opponent to grab it. Like, I don't really want this green 8, but I know Mike wants it
and so you'll
badly.
hold it the whole game.
I will do so.
Yeah, exactly.
You clog yourself up. In this game, it has that headiness, the 2-player, do I want to give him this or not? Or is he going to steal it from me? But I don't have a hand limit. It's all out there, and so it's just a little bit looser, and I can see a lot of people preferring that. Just that little bit more looseness is easygoing.
And the scoring is quite different, too, in this. I know we keep comparing them, but look, it's a natural comparison.
Kenichi did it to himself, really.
Well, the scoring in this is interesting because, some of the cards are going to have the points on them. Those little symbols are points, and others will not have any. But the reason why you're going to be looking at the cards that don't give you straight points is that they're going to lead to these objectives, right? And so I tend to like games that have objectives, and that's probably my favorite part of this game one of my favorite parts is having to think about the objectives. It's not just about points. It's about how well am I going to do on these objectives, too.
All right, so what's your final thoughts?
I'm going to come down. I'm going to give this one an 8. I like this one more than Lost Cities, and that's where my comparison will end, because we've talked about I do. No.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine, but I mean that means Lost Cities is less than an 8, which is mind-boggling to me. But continue.
Okay, that's
yeah.
where the comparisons will end. I think
Yeah.
this, as its own, if you've never played Lost Cities, like, sorry for the comparisons. I think this is a good card game. It's clever. The trading to steal really makes it for me. I like the shared objectives. Multiple people can get them. So you have a lot of directions that you can work with. It has a healthy serving of randomness, as Knizia is wont to do. But I think that works for such a small form factor, quick-paced game like this. I had a lot of fun with it. It's an 8.
What about you?
Not quite as high for me. I'm coming in at a 7 for it. I feel like this is a crowded space here, right? You know, this small box card game, quick playing. It's pleasant. I enjoy it. I'd be happy to teach it and play it to anybody who it appeals to. There's zero theme. You know, sometimes Knizia gets that rap and it's more deserved than others. This really has zero theme. But it looks pretty, so I'm happy with that. So it's a 7. A solid game, but there are many other card games, even by the same designer, that I would prefer. So.
I'm actually with Chris, although I'm not going to say the ludicrous thing that it's better than Lost Cities. But I'm also giving it an 8. I really enjoyed it. I feel, I know it's themeless, but this 25th Century makes yourself look great anyway.
Yes.
And this looks fantastic.
Yes.
It's easy to teach and to play, and I've been complaining so much lately about bad math in games, and this one is so good. There's one wild of every number. The wilds have no stickers on them. So you have to know when to use them. You know, the lower numbers usually have less stickers on than the higher numbers, and so you're tempted to put it's good. There's more of the middle numbers. It's just, Knizia knows his math.
That's one thing you could say. You may not
He
like
knows
his
his
games.
math, and-
You can never doubt his math.
There's no question, better math usually, not always, but better math usually makes a better game. So I like it a lot, and definitely you should check out Longboard, and one day we'll surf. Actually, I keep saying I'll be too old at some point.
No, you're not. Let's do it. You got plenty of time.
All right, well,
I'll be
anyhow.
the one laying on the board out there. Woo.
Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Chris Yi.
And I'm Mike DiLisio.
Surf's up.
Woo!